I'm honored to be here. And I won't take a whole lot of your time, but just want to share some thoughts. And the other reason I think is this topic is so crucial to me. It's my passion. It's my heart. It is so important to me, and it is so important to our city and to our future. Not just the future of Woodlawn, but the future of Chicago, the future of our country. The violence that has become an epidemic in our city and across the nation. It's from Newark, New Jersey to Oakland, California. It's all across America. And we have to understand that this violence did not come about overnight. And guess what? It's not going to end overnight. But it is now going to end, and it's never going to end until we decide that we have the will and the commitment to make it end. It's on us. It's on our will and our commitment to make it happen. The causes of the violence that is plaguing our communities are complex. And the solutions, if we're going to end the violence, have to be comprehensive. And I want to say some of these because I don't want to ever think that this is some easy thing that we can do to turn this violence thing around. It's a whole comprehensive issue that has to come about. It's going to take jobs. It's going to take employment. We can't keep having communities like Woodland and Lawndale and Auburn, Gresham, and Englewood to have the highest employments in our city and in our country. That can't happen. We've got to do something about employment, and we've got to do something about jobs. It's going to take excellent education. And I'm so glad about the Woodlawn Project and what Bishop Brazier's dream and vision was to do in Woodlawn and what we have to do around this country. Because guess what? Education provides options. If a child has a good education, it's options of what you can do for your future. But if a child doesn't have an education, then they don't have options in front of them. My third son that I adopted was 16 years old when he came to me and could not read and went to Chicago public schools. That's inexcusable. It's a sin and a shame that we cannot allow in our city. And that education has to be in every school. In every neighborhood, every child. Education should not be depending upon your zip code and your race. It should be wherever you want to go to school that you can get an excellent education and develop the God-given dreams and talent and that God has put in every single one of our children. The problem is not with our children. The problem is with us adults that we don't develop what's in our children and God put in them. It's going to take positive alternatives. It's going to take things for our kids to do after school and before school and on the weekends. We can't just keep telling our children what not to do. We got to give them positive things to engage in and be involved in. It's going to take teaching conflict resolution. I've been saying this for years. I don't get it yet. Why every school in this country is not teaching conflict resolution from preschool to senior year high school. We teach violence in America. We teach it in videos, we teach it in gangster rap, we teach it in games, we teach it on TV every night. We talk about the violence around the country. We teach our children how to be violent. Why won't we teach our children how to be peacemakers, how to have conflict resolution, how to get along with one another? We need to teach it. It needs to be part of our curriculum. It's going to demand having strong homes. It's going to demand having strong parents. It's going to demand partnerships and commitment from faith communities, from businesses, from community organizations, from law enforcement. It's going to take intervention and prevention with our most vulnerable youth. We can't just have saying that that child's a problem child and writing them off or putting them in some alternative school. What are we doing to take that child and help them? They should be getting our greatest resources, not harvesting them someplace and said just put them in some warehouse and let them go ahead until they go to jail or a cemetery. Those are our children. Those are our gifts. That's the seed of our wombs. And we have to make sure as adults that we are doing everything we can to save them. But let me tell you, with all of that and the more that's going to be demanded, it's going to demand community and neighbors and families like you who are here tonight and myself to rise up. We have got to rise up and take ownership and become the empowered stakeholders of our communities who determine the future of our communities. The communities are not going to be determined by Springfield or City Hall. We're the ones that got to tell Springfield and City Hall what we want in our community. We got to stop waiting to be told, and we got to be the ones telling them what we want. We've got to be the stakeholders who determine our futures and decide what we're going to do. And we're going to have to be willing to take responsibility. It goes all the way back, and I can't help it. I'm a Christian. I'm not apologizing for it. But it goes all the way back to Genesis, and God said, I'll give you the garden, but work it and make it fruitful. And if we don't work it, we are nothing but absentee landlords taking care of our communities. And an absentee landlord, a building, is where problems arise. And problems arise in our communities because for too long we've been absentee landlords in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and in the city. And nobody's going to care about the city more than we who live on those blocks and live in those houses and live in these neighborhoods. These are our communities. We constantly hear the African proverb, it takes a whole village to raise a child, and it does. But sisters and brothers, the village is broken. The village is sick. The village is dysfunctional. And if we don't fix it, the sick village will raise sick children and create generational curses of children who are left with stuff because of what we deposited or failed to deposit in them. We become divided from each other. We become strangers to each other. The code of silence doesn't just talk about crime. The code of silence is being neighbors again. Now we have Dr. Phil, and we have Dr. Oz, and we have all these people who are giving parenting workshops and all this kind of stuff on TV and selling books. Parenting workshops used to happen on the front porch. Parenting workshops used to happen while you were taking the garbage out back, and you said, I'm going to kill that kid, and you talk to your neighbor, and you give each other advice, and you learn and you talk, and we learn from each other, and we raised our families together. We don't need to go to a class. Sometimes the best teacher in the neighborhood lives upstairs or lives next door or lives across the street. We just got to talk. The first code of silence that's got to be broken is taking communities and making them neighborhoods again, making them families again, making them brothers and sisters again. Dr. King said, unless we learn to live together as brothers and sisters, we'll perish together as fools. That's what's happening. And a dangerous thing in my mind is taking place in our society that goes along with this code of silence. We look for government to do what we used to do. We're looking for government to do stuff we used to just naturally do for each other. I say this all the time. We have 311 in the city. And you call 311. If you haven't seen, Miss Smith across the street, you call 311 and say, I haven't seen her in 3 days, and would somebody go over there and check and see if Miss Smith's all right? And then they send out somebody from the city. I begged Mayor Daley, and I'm begging Mayor Emanuel, give me 311 for 24 hours. Give it to me for 24 hours. And I want to answer the phone myself. And when you call me and tell me to check on Miss Smith across the house, across the street, I'm going to say, get up off your lazy butt. Walk across the street, ring Miss Smith's doorbell, see how Miss Smith is. If she needs emergency help, then call 911, we'll come. But why should I call a stranger to go to my neighbor? That's my neighbor. So we look for government to go check on our neighbors. Here's stories from 311 people that tell me, somebody said, my mother, I can't reach her, and I'm worried about it. Could you go check on your mother? Do you live out of town? No, I'm on the north side, and she's on the south side. Well, get in your car. That's your mama. Give me 311 for 1 day. And now to fight crime, we want blue lights. I don't want blue lights. Miss Boyd was my blue light on my block. Miss Boyd knew what was going on in the block, and she knew it before you knew it. And she told everybody on the block. Why would we want a blue light that half the time people ain't watching no way? I don't even know if they work, man. I know they are in the 3rd district, they good. I'm talking about the 6th. I know in the 6th, they ain't working. If I can see somebody dealing drugs underneath the blue light at 75th and Stewart, I figure that blue light ought to see what I see. So I don't understand why we want to call for government to do what we used to do. I hear sometimes when I'm talking to some police officers riding in the car with, and I'm listening to the radio and hearing them calling 911 to send the police over because a mother's having problems with her son. I had 3 sons. I wish I would have had to call the police. One time. They wish I'd have called the police. We're calling the police to do things we used to do for ourselves. That's my house. That's my family. That's my children. That's my block. Why should I have a police officer waste his or her time to come take care of my child? Or my boyfriend's drunk. Well, kick him out. Don't have me come and kick him out. You kick him out. He's not my boyfriend. It's time. It's time, my brothers and sisters, that we become the well-being checks on each other again. The first code of silence has to be broken in talking to our neighbors, talking to the people down the street and across the street. Breaking the code of silence by deciding I'm going to be the 911 on my block. I'm going to be the blue light on my block. We can no longer waste time looking for government to do it. And we can't waste time pointing fingers. I am pointing fingers out. We want to blame the parents. We want to blame the police. We want to blame the teachers. We want to blame this. Guess what? We all are part of the problem. Every single one of us. No, y'all didn't get that. Say, I'm part of the problem. No, just say it. I come from church. Say, I'm part of the problem. We're all guilty. And we're all going to have to step up. We're all going to have to step up and do something. And, and I heard a number of people talking about the numbers here. Let me tell you something. The Christ I follow started out with 12 crazy fishermen. One of them betrayed him. One of them denied him. And all the rest ran but one. And he was just too stupid to be at he just stayed there at the bottom of the cross waiting to see what was going to happen. Numbers don't mean nothing. Commander, we took a block over at 78th and Hermitage some years ago. They called me up and said, Father Mike, will you come over here? We got open drug dealing on the block. I said, okay. I rolled by a few times, saw it. Afternoon, like 3, 4 o'clock, man. It was like Walmart, man. It was unbelievable. And so I said, well, you get the people together for a meeting. We'll have a meeting. We had a meeting. Said, okay, what are we going to do on this block? I said, okay, well, when's the drug dealing? They said, this is the time this one takes place. I said, okay. All right, then what's the worst days? And they told the worst day. I said, okay, this Friday, let's go out there. 5 o'clock at night, we're going to be there at 5 o'clock on the block. How many going to come out? We're all going to go on chairs and sit out in front of your house. Bring a notebook, bring a piece of paper and a pen, sit in front of your house. Everybody goes, oh. I might have to work late. I think I got to go shopping this Friday. This senior raised her hand. She was about 79 years old. She said, I'll be there. I said, I need at least 2 more people. 3 seniors. The youngest was 72, said they'd be there. I said, that's all I need. The rest of y'all go do whatever you do. We went out there that Friday night, got lawn chairs, came out there, sat right in the middle of the block where the drug trafficking was going on, took their papers, took their pens, sat out there. This one lady called me over. She said, Father Mike, I don't have my glasses. I can't see what I'm doing. I says, they don't know that. A few minutes later, she was saying, son, move over. I can't get that license plate. Move over a minute. Move over there. Those 3 seniors and myself in lawn chairs stopped the drug dealing on that block, and it is not going on that block today because of those 3 seniors who embarrassed the rest of the people on the block who were too afraid to come out. Sisters and brothers, we have to understand it's time to stop waiting for everybody else to do it. It's time to move away from the fear factor. deal with people who say, well, I'm afraid of what might happen. As long as fear controls us, we will see our communities deteriorate. But worse than that, as long as fear controls us, we're going to see our children die. And we are going to have the blood on our hands. Fear is either going to paralyze us and get worse, or motivate us to say, I got to do something. And let me talk to the Christians a minute. Any Christians here? Well, how do we stand up in church and talk about my God is Jehovah Jireh, he's Jehovah Nissi, he's Jehovah Shalom, he's Almighty, he's King of Kings, he's Lord of Lords, and then we walk out and we afraid? Isn't the same God who we were calling names of things when he was in church, he's the same God on the street? He ain't no wimp on the street. He's not afraid. If you believe he's God, act like it when you get out of church. How dare we mock God by saying he's all this in church and get out and say how afraid we are? We have to get tired of yellow police tape and teddy bears and balloons becoming the landmarks of our communities. We have to get tired of hearing sirens and helicopters be kind of the norm of our city streets in the summertime. It's time to realize that shaking our heads and closing our eyes is not going to work. And it's time to realize that we can't say, well, I wish Miss Jones would take care of her child. Well, instead of condemning Miss Jones, why don't you help her? Why don't you reach out and talk to that? Because, you know, as a parent, and if there's any other parents in here, you know that sometimes your kids, the last person they'll listen to is you. But you can have somebody else say the same thing, say, well, I've been saying that for 3 weeks and you didn't hear me. It's time of us being the neighbors and the extended family to one another again. Instead of condemning Miss Jones, maybe Miss Jones needs a helping hand. Why can't we reach out and help her? Sisters and brothers, when we rise up and get connected and empowered blocks and neighborhoods, we will not only create communities where our children can grow in age and grace and wisdom, but we will break this senseless code of silence. Violence is prospering because of silence, because of fear, and because we don't want to get involved. It is unacceptable. Think about this, that someone can shoot or kill our children, go pick up some McDonald's and go back at home and kick it and watch TV because they know we ain't going to say nothing. That's unacceptable. We have to draw the line in the sand and say, you know what, not on this block and not on my watch. I tell people all the time, I'm the biggest snitch in the world. I will tell on you in a minute because you're not going to go back and lay up in McDonald's and watch TV while our children are being shot by your hands out here in the street. Listen, I hate prisons, and I think prisons don't work. But if you shoot our children, you got to go to prison. You got to go to jail. You got to go be locked up because you're a danger to the community. It is unacceptable that someone can terrorize our blocks and our neighborhoods, that 2 or 3 people can terrorize 30 people on a block. What's wrong with that picture? That 30 people can be afraid of one person who's a punk, who isn't a man to speak with his mouth or her mouth. They got to have a gun to make them somebody. A gun don't make you nobody but a punk. Where is the righteous indignation? Where's the righteous indignation that says, we will not tolerate evil in this block, in this neighborhood, in this community? And then people come back, well, if we clean up our block, they're just going to go to the next block. Well, you know what? Then y'all clean up your block. And when we all clean up our blocks, there'll be no place else to go. But guess what? As long as I live in this block, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the God, and we're going to have peace on this block. Now, it may be bad on the next block because you don't do nothing, but on this block, it ain't going to happen. We have to decide we're not going to tolerate evil. And we have to understand that there's craziness about one must stay silent because I have to be safe. As long as that shooter is out there, as long as that robber is out there, As long as that drug dealer is out there, you are at risk. Person doesn't just shoot once. If he'll shoot today, he'll shoot tomorrow. And does it have to come to your house before you say, let's do something? I remember a man a couple years ago who came to me, because we start putting up rewards, because I don't care whatever it takes to lock somebody up that kills our kids. The man came to me and he said, I can't do nothing. I'll tell you information, but I refuse to talk to me. I'm just scared because I work with it. I know the guy that did it. I saw him do it. I said, sir, give me the information. It's not enough. The police can't arrest somebody because I tell them that's the guy. You need to come forward. If you saw it happen. He says, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm just worried about my family. I'm worried I work there, and I can't do it, Father Mike. I stayed on him for about 3 weeks. He wouldn't do it. 1 year, almost to the day, his daughter was shot. And he called me up crying. And he said, I feel like I'm the guilty person. Wasn't the same person that shot. But he said, I feel like maybe had I done something, maybe it wouldn't have happened to my daughter, because maybe it'd be a safer place right now. It's going to come to your house. It's going to come to your door. It's going to come to your family. Sisters and brothers, we have to break this code of silence, because if we don't, guess what? We are co-conspirators. And I said this to Weiss when he was here. I said it to McCarthy. If somebody knows that somebody shot somebody, and they know who did it and don't say anything, that person shoots somebody again, and we find out that they knew, they should be arrested as a conspiracy to the crime. They should go to jail because you knew it and you wouldn't say nothing. And now somebody else is dead and that blood is on your hands. And that blood cries out from the ground. As I mentioned in the beginning, and we'll stop. I mentioned in the beginning that we all have to do something about stopping this reality out here. The climate of violence we find ourselves in is going to continue until we develop the will, until we say, you know what, I'm not going to wait for everybody else to speak up. I'm going to start speaking up. I'm going to start doing something. I'm going to be the conscience of this block. All it takes is one to begin to turn around a block, to turn around a neighborhood. Please hear me when I say this. The violence that's out here is beatable and winnable. There's no such thing as the problem out here being too hard. It just lacks us and our commitment to say we're going to stop it. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah? It said Sodom and Gomorrah was going to be destroyed. It was so evil. Abraham cried out, God, if I get 50 righteous people, will you stop it? Yes. God, if I get 40, if I get 30, if I get 20, God, if there's 10 righteous people, will you stop it? And God said yes. And the next chapter, Sodom and Gomorrah is being destroyed. Why? Because Sodom and Gomorrah were so evil? No. But because 10 righteous people could not be found to stand up and do the right thing. Let me tell you in a real personal note why we have to break the code of silence. It's personal to me because my youngest son was killed in 98 at 79th and Carpenter. And I've lived in that grounds there at St. Sabina since 1975, as Ron said. And I understand that I don't know how many times I might have seen the shooter and don't know it because nobody would come forward. And I don't know how many other people that person has killed since my son. He was just buying chips at a store. The reason you got to break the code of silence is these here. It's children I've buried. Most of them who the person's not caught. Who right out there in the street today. Who may be coming to your house or my house next. We have to break the code of silence because the genocide going against our children has to stop. I'll close saying this to you. You know, in the Catholic Church, we hear a lot and talk a lot about abortion. And I'm absolutely against abortion. But I think we have narrowed abortion to thinking about it as only something that happens in a womb in a clinic. My Bible tells me that every life has a God-given purpose, a God-given destiny, a God-given plan, something God birthed us here to do. So in my mind, anything that does not allow our children to grow up and become who God called them to be is a form of abortion. And this violence is abortion in our communities today. We have to make sure, let's not just condemn the violence of abortion in a womb in a clinic, but let's stop the abortion that's going on in our streets when we decide, not here, not now, never again, I will speak up. God bless you.